Hello, I'm Jovan Johnson with the Imf Tracker. This week, Jamaica makes repayment on failed 2010 IMF loan. Prime Minister says current deal not painless. Omnibus bill to be brought to Parliament. These stories in a moment, but first, our question of the week. In economics, to what does the term ostrich refer? Stay tuned, the answer comes up at the end of the program. Jamaica is scheduled to make a repayment of approximately $1.3 billion under its 2010 standby agreement with the International Monetary Fund IMF today. The payment comes ahead of the fund's executive board's discussion on the first quarterly review of Jamaica's performance expected for Monday, September 30. Jamaica's debt under the 2010 loan agreement is now worth approximately $85 billion. Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller admitted on Sunday that Jamaica's deal with the IMF has not been painless. However, she told supporters at a People's National Party conference that her government has introduced measures to ease the burden on the poor. The Prime Minister argued that an agreement was inevitable, but acknowledged that a deal would ultimately pave the way for sustained economic growth. Under the agreement, Jamaica must, among other things, implement several crucial structural reforms and contain and reduce the national debt. The Prime Minister emphasized that her government is committed to creating jobs to improve the quality of life for Jamaicans. The Jamaican government was expected to table the Omnibus Tax Incentives Act in Parliament this week. The bill is part of structural reforms in Jamaica's agreement with the IMF. It will eliminate ministerial discretionary powers to grant or validate any tax relief and put in place a transparent regime for limited tax incentives. There is no stipulation as to how soon the legislation should be promulgated, but debate on the bill and its passage into law is not expected to go beyond the end of December. Under a related structural benchmark, the government has agreed that it will no longer consider new applications under existing tax incentive regimes after December. And to end our program, the answer to this week's question. Ostrich is an informal term that refers to the tendency of certain investors to ignore bad news that can affect their investments. It's based on the popular misconception that when an ostrich senses danger and cannot run away, it buries its head in the sand. And that's where we end our trek this week on the Imf Tracker. I'm Jovan Johnson.